Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give it a minute or two for everyone to join from the waiting room, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. You all are more than welcome to utilize the chat. Put a happy Monday. Hope everyone had a great Easter weekend. For those of you that just joined, I'm just going to give it another minute or so, and then we'll get started. I'm just waiting for everyone to filter in. Thanks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do my intro spiel, and hopefully any of the people coming in a little late will just miss, a little bit of me talking. But like I said, happy Monday, everyone. I hope you all had a great weekend. It's beautiful outside today. It's going to be beautiful for the next couple of days. So thank you for joining us midday. Maybe this is your lunch break. We have a great webinar scheduled for you here today. We will be talking about where you should build your website, which I know is a huge topic for many small businesses throughout the pandemic and even continuing on as we look to the future, trying to stay relevant as things start to open up again, right? Still having that online presence. So this webinar is brought to you today by our guest speaker, Jen from Brandswan, who I'll introduce in a second. And of course, we are putting it on here at Temple Small Business Development Center. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, the Temple Small Business Development Center is part of a nationally accredited network of small business development centers that are funded by the federal, state, and state government, as well as a local university. So Temple SBDC is at Temple University in Philadelphia. The SBDCs, like I said, there's over 1,000 in the United States alone. There are 16 in Pennsylvania, and Temple is in charge of the Philadelphia area, as well as Lower Montgomery and Eastern Bucks and Lower Montgomery County. I always get those two mixed up. So we are proud to present this webinar to you today. I more than encourage you to utilize the chat. Like I said, feel free to put a happy Monday in there or ask any questions or interact with each other. If you have any questions during the presentation, please utilize the Q&A. We will try to get to them as they make sense through the presentation, or we will wait till the end depending on the nature of that question. But if you do have a question, I encourage you to use the Q&A so it doesn't get lost in the chat. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jen Wells to introduce herself and get us started here.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone. I am excited to walk you through some different website building options today. So starting us off, where should you build your website? This presentation, we're going to talk about some different platforms, and this might be helpful if you're already on something, or it's probably mostly tailored towards you're not sure where to get started with your website. A little bit of background on me, on your speaker today. I'm Jen Wells. I am the co-founder and marketing director of Brandswan. We are a branding, web design, and marketing agency. We work with small businesses, nonprofits, and professionals to help them build standout brands. More information about me: I am a reformed perfectionist. I am obsessed with efficiency. I absolutely love comparing and finding the best options. So this was a perfect presentation for me to do. And I am a parent, dog owner, and compulsive reader, as well as a provider of free consultations. So this presentation will be shared with you after this is over, all the slides, and you'll be able to click these links. And if anybody wants to talk with me more about this presentation or any web design topics, feel free to schedule with me. And I really mean that. I'm happy to talk to you for 20 to 30 minutes, no charge, just talk about your project and recommendations for you specifically. All right, basics. What is a website builder? There are so many options, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on all of them because I don't think that's possible for anyone to be. There are new website builders coming out every single year, and every year when you look at what's the best website builder for me to use, there will be 100 different articles that give different answers in their top 10 because everyone has different preferences, and because frankly, there's too many for anyone to find them all and compare every single one. So if you're hoping to do a pros and cons list of every single one, you're going to be overwhelmed right away. I am going to talk about the top ones that I have used and that I'm familiar with, and the ones that are the most common. But I'm hoping this presentation will also give you an idea, if you want to do your own research, what features to look for and how to make a decision based on that, and not just, oh, I have to use this one because someone recommended it. I want you to be able to take this and then do some research on your own. And this isn't the end all be all. So like I said, there's no wrong answer for choosing a website builder, except, and I'm half serious here, but GoDaddy. I have seen, I want to say at least 10 different people who have come to us for help with their GoDaddy website built in GoDaddy, and not a single one was set up properly, was utilized right, were they able to make edits easily. And maybe I'm biased because I'm seeing the people who had to come to a web designer to help them, but it is by far the worst website builder I have tried to work with. So I don't recommend GoDaddy. I know it's easy. I know a lot of people use GoDaddy for hosting. It's right there. That does not make it the optimal solution. So if you're doing GoDaddy and you like it, good for you. Thanks, Jamie, for the backup support. If you're using it, it's okay. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying if you're thinking about where to get started, I really don't recommend that one. And then Constant Contact. I don't want to pick on Constant Contact. I want to use them as an example because I had no idea they had a website builder, and someone showed us the other day. And I think anytime there's a service that is tailored for something else, something specific, like in this case, email marketing, and then they add something on, just like, oh yeah, we also have X, I would be wary. Make sure that they've spent the time to fully develop that feature. And think about, I'm going to use the analogy I used earlier today. Would you go to a steakhouse to order a salad? Probably not. Maybe that steakhouse will have good salads, but probably they're going to have amazing steaks. So let's think twice before we go to the email marketing program to use their website builder, right? And it's not just Constant Contact. I think more and more people are seeing the need to be able to build websites, and it's becoming an add-on different platforms. That doesn't mean it's going to be the best choice. So getting into that list of things to consider when you're choosing a website builder. First things first, the initial setup. How hard is it going to be to get started? And as we go through this features list, for the ones that do take a little more effort to get started, is it going to be worth it for you? So starting off with WordPress, because that is, by and large, the most common. We're talking about WordPress.org, not WordPress.com. And if you're not sure what the difference is between those two, WordPress.com is a lot like Squarespace. You can go make an account, create a website, you can set it up through them and they'll host it for you. But most of the time, that's a paid service. Most of the time when people are talking about WordPress, they're talking about WordPress.org. This is a completely free piece of software that you can install on your own host. It's .org because it's a nonprofit and it's available to everyone. So the benefits there is that you have a lot more control over it. It's free. You still have to pay for hosting. You have to do some setup on your own, but the software itself gives you so much more customization than when you use WordPress.com, which is like these other programs where they're like, this is the package, you get X, Y, and Z. You don't get to choose all of the bits and pieces that you add in there. I have the Q&A open. So ask questions throughout. I'm here, I'm paying attention. And if I miss something, then Sarah will pop up and let me know. Ed, yes, we do setup. That's something that we could help you with for sure. Okay, so initial setup. So talking about WordPress.org. This answer you can see is longer than the others because it's not just click yes, 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 and then install wizard and then you're done. You have to figure out your own web hosting. So you set up a web host. A lot of them have an easy install option. So once you buy your hosting package, it'll say set up a WordPress site, and that'll take you through a setup wizard that will do it for you. Not all of them do. So that's something to research. If you do, or if you are interested in setting up a WordPress site, find a host that will help you do it easily. If that idea intimidates you, you don't want to mess with that at all. Squarespace, Shopify, Wix are all basically go to the website, squarespace.com, make an account, build a website. It will walk you through every step. It doesn't get a whole lot easier than that. All right, so then ease of use. After you create your account, how easy is it going to be to get started? Most websites have drag and drop builder. I say most website builders. So Squarespace, Shopify, Wix, you pick a theme. You decide, I'm going to start my website using this. And then you basically replace the content. So I'll put my own images in, I'll put my own text in, and then maybe I'll change the colors and fonts. Most website builders allow that level of customization. Some of them can be harder to find the options. Like I know personally in Squarespace, I've had some trouble finding where the colors are, or some website builders don't have it global. So you're changing the colors in a text box and it's not changing the colors in the rest of the website. So I think there's a learning curve to figuring out how to make changes across the whole site and keep things consistent versus I'm changing this section right now. Beyond those basic edits, if you wanted like deeper customization, if you wanted to change layouts, that's where it gets more complicated. You definitely can do it, but there's limits to how far you can go with it. So I think a lot of this just is, I was going to say, I don't want to say control freak, but maybe type A personality. How much do you need this to be your exact vision, right? So if you're okay with just taking a template that's already beautiful and then putting your own content in there, then Squarespace, Shopify, Wix, any of those website builders are going to be a good choice. If you want it to fit your content, if you know your business and you know what information you want to share and you want it to be customized to you, then you're probably going to want WordPress because you're going to want to be able to do everything you can do. And WordPress is almost unlimited in the number of things you can do, the themes you can install, the plugins, and so on. And we'll get into that. Okay, domain names. A domain name is actually separate from hosting. Website hosting is where the files live. So a web host, a lot of people use GoDaddy. We don't like GoDaddy because of all of the hidden fees that are often associated with it. We prefer SiteGround, but there are a ton of different web hosts. When you pay for hosting, that's just where your website files live. Different hosting packages might mean that your website loads faster or slower. And there's other things that you can often set up there that will make your website more secure, like an SSL certificate. So that's hosting. Your domain name is basically like the sign that points to your website. So you have to use a domain registrar as well. And so, www.yoursite.com. And that's going to point to those files that are stored somewhere. So the place that they're stored is the host. The domain is the signpost that takes people to the files. If someone were to present you a website example that is emulated, I'm actually not sure if I understand that question. Oh, can we recognize what a website has been built on from looking at it? Yes, and I can tell you right now, anytime I want to see if a website is a WordPress site, I go to the URL /WP admin because that will take you to the backend where you log in. You can also look at the source code, and WordPress sites always have WP dash in front of all of the file names. So that's a giveaway for WordPress sites. But the other sites usually have it too. Like a Squarespace site, somewhere in the source code, it will say Squarespace, right? Even if it's just their copyright information. Divi is actually a theme that is installed into WordPress. And so talking about ease of use, the other sites, you pick a theme and you run with it, right? And those are all part of the platform. WordPress, you install your own themes. You can pick any theme out there. Some are free and they come with WordPress when you install it. Those are not great, which anytime something is free, you're probably going to question, well, what am I actually getting with this, right? Divi is a paid theme and it's actually our preferred theme that we use. And so when you install that, you get the same drag and drop customization that you get with some of those other programs, but you get so much more. It is incredibly customizable to the point where it might even be overwhelming if you don't know what you're doing. And so to your point about, can you recognize whether it's a Divi theme? A lot of times, some of our team can just from looking at it because they recognize certain layouts of the header, like, oh, that's a Divi thing, or certain dividers in the theme, are a giveaway. And then also looking at the source code, but that's not necessarily something that people know to do. I was going to say, I right-click view source code, which anyone can do, but you can try it on your computer right now. If you pull up a website, that might be a little bit beyond what other people are comfortable with. Okay, so moving on from ease of use, hopefully that made sense, the difference between the drag and drop builder versus having to install your own theme that gives you those same capabilities. So WordPress, again, requires more setup, but after you get to that point, you can do a lot more with it than you can do with the themes on the other website building platforms. So customization, this kind of gets into what we were just talking about a little bit more. This is where I get into being completely honest. I have not built a ton of websites using Squarespace, Shopify, and Wix. Shopify I have the least experience with. So I'm relying on the internet for some screenshots for what this looks like. This is a Shopify layout. This is fairly typical of what a website builder looks like. So you'll be able to see, your default template. You'll be able to add things over here. And when you click add, it'll show you, oh, an image, oh, a text block. When you want to edit the settings for those things, you click on them. So hopefully when you look at this, you can kind of translate that into different platforms have similar options. When you've worked in several different ones, you can kind of find the commonalities and it's a lot easier to get started. Like if I was to start with a new website builder I've never used, I would know what to look for. So it'd be easier for me. It might still be a little bit scarier for someone who's new to it. The simplicity of this, like there's one box and there's one, a set of options for each of those things. That's where this is different from WordPress. WordPress would be, instead of these easy to click boxes, it would be showing you the layout right here. So, here's the image and here's all the settings for it. And here's the padding and the width and the sizing. And is it, a parallax scroll so that when you're moving, the photo looks like it's moving up as you're scrolling down the page. There's just so much more. And again, not everybody wants that because so many choices can be overwhelming. Just making sure I didn't miss anything, but I think that's about it. So everything's customizable to a point, not necessarily customizable to the level that WordPress is. SEO.
Jen, we have a question about themes that I think fits well here. Is there a way to identify and compare different themes to find the one that best matches your needs before you go live?
Yeah, well, and that depends which platform you're on too, because they all have, their libraries of themes. So typically, say you're in Squarespace, if you search by your industry, that's the one that, that's a good way to narrow in on something that's going to have really similar fields to what you're going to need. When we build websites, and I guess this is a web designer thing, we try not to pick industry templates because we want to make sure your website's going to look really different from like the standard things in the industry. But if it's a template that you're not going to customize a whole lot and you want it to just be ready to go when you plug in your content, that's honestly the quickest way. So real estate website, and then maybe 3 come up and they have a section for house listings. So they're ready for you to go. Honestly, I think that's the easiest way. If you're talking about WordPress and those themes, so, we mentioned Divi and Elementor, those are actually theme builders. And I'm trying to think of what a quick way would be. So it depends how much of the terminology you understand, but you could, search Divi, search Elementor and do a comparison of the features. Probably a video tutorial is going to be the best way to do it, or if there's a way to get a free trial so that you can actually test it out. Because I don't think a quick features list is going to give you a good idea of whether you prefer, this theme builder or that one. I think it's going to be trying it out that's going to give you the real answers. So for the website building, Squarespace, Shopify, Wix, just search your industry, see what comes up, see what has the most similarity to what sections you want to use so that you don't have to change, so that you change as little as possible. And then for WordPress, it's going to be watch some video tutorials to see the functionality of it, because there are so many options that finding one that's easy to use is going to be probably your highest importance. And then the other question, can you demo how to identify which builder a website used? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Give me a website and I'll show you.
Yeah, so Mary, if you want, she's the one who asked that question. Mary, if you want, you can send us just the panelists a message and we can look at that website link. And then we can maybe touch on that at the end, if that's okay, Jen.
Yeah, sure.
And then we just had one person have a question in the chat about, and this is kind of I'm not sure if this is in your wheelhouse necessarily, but if you purchase the domain, for example, from GoDaddy, can you change your domain after the year ends?
Yeah, you can move it whenever you want to. Oh, can you change, wait, I guess, can you change the website or the URL that your website is using? And the answer is yes. As soon as you buy a new URL, you can use both of them, and then you can end your registration. And then when that dies off, then that other URL will just go away. Or
Mhm.
if the question was, can you change where it's registered to? The answer is also yes.
Okay,
Usually
great.
when you switch registrars, they will make you sign up for a year. Even if you just paid up for a year, they'll still make you sign up for a year with them. So just be aware that if you do it before your year's up, you'll have to pay for the next year early. But it doesn't mean that the next year starts right away. It starts at the end of your first year. So you're not losing any money. You're just kind of paying in advance.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think they said domain, but I think you're right. I think they were talking about hosting on GoDaddy versus hosting
Oh,
some.
change your web host.
Yeah. So I think you answered both,
Okay.
which is great. And then there clearly seems to be a lot of questions on this subject. So someone else said, if you begin with one host, is it easy to switch to another? And I think you just answered that. So I
Oh,
think,
well, that's actually a little different than domain
oh, okay.
registrar. Yeah. So hosting, I think, is more difficult because, well, and it's a, I guess we're talking hosting, we're not talking a website building company, but I have had, yeah. So the files live on the web host, and now those files are going to have to live somewhere else. So you're going to need to like download them yourself and reinstall them somewhere else. Most web hosts don't do that for you. So it's not like moving a domain over where you can just unlock it on this end. This one will import it for you. The web hosts that I've worked with don't have an easy import option. So you need someone who knows what they're doing to export your website and save the files and then reinstall it for you. So switching hosts is actually more difficult than switching registrars for your domain.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying. That was all the questions for now. So like I said, if anyone has questions, put them in the Q&A, but we'll keep going.
Okay. So SEO. This is one that I wanted a whole slide for because it's one of the subjects that comes up a lot. And like you have this website, but people aren't going to find it unless you optimize for search. So WordPress, 100% the best option for this if you're going to have an SEO strategy, if you're going to try to optimize for SEO. And that's because there are so many different plugins that you can use. So if you just install WordPress by itself, no, you're not quite there. You need to keep adding stuff. And it's those integrations that make WordPress so powerful. We love Yoast. And the thing that makes Yoast different than these other websites is that it actually grades you on your content, and it gives you an itemized list of what you've done well and what could be better for you to improve. So you tell it what your keyword is, going back to real estate as an example, and then you could say real estate Delaware. And then it will give you like a little red or a little yellow light, and it will tell you, you know what, you never actually mentioned real estate Delaware in your headlines. So you know exactly what you need to do to fix your content. And I don't think, and I could be wrong because things keep changing all the time, but I don't think there are other website builders that do that for you. That being said, if you go to Squarespace and you say, what's your SEO feature? They'll tell you about all the things they do for you. And they try to make it as easy as possible because a lot of people don't want to get in that far with SEO. So, they automatically set up your meta descriptions and all of the kind of like tech back end stuff they can do. They make sure that your page titles are optimized. But those things don't help you write the content that you're going to need for truly good SEO, right? Like you can optimize your site, everything's set up perfectly, it's really fast, it's got security, but if your content is not actually useful for users, then none of that stuff's going to matter because Google wants to find valuable content to serve up to the people that are searching. So that's what Yoast helps you to do. It helps you make sure that your content A is actually useful because it's answering people's questions, and B, that you're writing it in a way that helps Google know that you're writing about this topic that people want to hear about. Okay, well, anyway, so that's enough about Yoast. We love Yoast. There's plenty of other plugins that do the same thing. Yeah, it's a WordPress plugin. Squarespace, Shopify, and Wix all have kind of basic SEO features. They don't give you that guidance on writing your content, so they're limited in that way. Some of them, all of these websites have kind of a marketplace that has additional functionality that you can bring in. So it's possible that there are tools similar to Yoast, but the Squarespace version of Yoast or the Shopify version of Yoast that could give you that functionality. I'm not sure what they are, and they don't have, actually, we'll go right into the next slide. The libraries of things you can add are just smaller because none of these platforms have the reach that WordPress has. WordPress has, if there's something you can think of that you want, there is probably a WordPress plugin for it. There are probably 100 different WordPress plugins for it. They're not necessarily all free, but chances are you're going to find something that does what you want it to do. The other websites do have extra functionality and they call them different things. So Squarespace calls it extensions, Shopify calls it apps, Wix also calls it apps. So in the app marketplace, oh, here's an extra SEO app I can add. Here's an extra this, here's an extra that. But I think I just looked this up too. One of them said like, oh, we have a huge collection. And then they said they have 100 apps, right? So maybe 100 sounds like a lot, but WordPress, like I said, you search for set a default featured image for my page. So that way, when you share a page to social media, there's always an image that's associated with it. And there are 20 different apps for that very specific thing. So I just cannot emphasize enough how customizable WordPress is. Again, I don't want to trash talk the other ones because they are great solutions. But it's a trade-off, right? It's easier to get started. It's easier to do it on your own without tech knowledge, but you're not necessarily going to be able to do everything that you want to do. And then I see a question, do you have to pay extra for Yoast? Yoast actually has a free version, and the free version is really good. We use the free version for most of our clients. It's only the ones that really want to develop an SEO strategy, and that's part of their marketing plan. Those are the ones that will pay for Yoast Premium. And the difference is the free version of Yoast lets you pick a keyword and optimize your page content. It does all the things that most people need to do. Yoast Premium lets you set multiple keywords. It lets you kind of link things between the different pages on the website. It gives you that kind of broader strategy. And a lot of plugins for WordPress are this model. They give you something for free that is actually valuable and helpful, but then, oh, there's more, and the more costs more money. And same thing with the apps and the other websites. Like maybe some of them will be free, but a lot of them will be paid. Anytime you want to add functionality to your site, chances are you're going to have to pay for that. All right, e-commerce, because we are small businesses and a lot of us are retail. They all, yeah, short answer, they all do it. So WordPress, again, like all of our other discussion points, WordPress requires a little bit more customization. So you're going to have to install something, probably WooCommerce, but there's a bunch of other options as well. It's not free. This is something that's going to cost money. WordPress is free, and that is absolutely amazing that it's even available for free. But then all of these extra pieces that you add onto it, are not going to be. Squarespace. So just from the e-commerce that I've seen on Squarespace, it's pretty standard. You've got products, you've got payment processing, you can integrate it with your preferred shipping solution. That's typically a third-party program. You're probably paying for it. If you're not, then you can ship manually as well. Shopify has more in-depth product and selling options because that's the whole purpose of the platform. And then Wix is very similar to Squarespace from what I've seen. Disclaimer, I have not built an e-commerce site in Wix. And I wouldn't, because the few times that I've used Wix, and I know a lot of people love it. So I don't want to say don't use Wix. I included it in this presentation because I know it's worked well for a lot of people. I haven't had good experiences. It's been very slow to load. The websites have been slow. It's just been kind of clunky. And there are so many features that they've added that it's difficult to find what you need. And I feel like I've tried enough website builders that I recognize where to find different features. So if I'm having trouble finding it, I can only imagine someone who is on a website builder platform for the first time. So I don't like Wix because of that. That being said, they have all of the same e-commerce things that the other sites have. Support. So a lot of these, it depends what level you pay for. Squarespace, I have not seen support. And when I've had customers who get stuck on things in their Squarespace website, they don't get a response, or they get a response that says, like someone was trying to integrate their Google Workspace and their Squarespace site so that the email and the domain played nicely together. And it was just like pointing fingers, right? Squarespace says, oh, that's a Google problem. Google says that's a Squarespace problem. So I'm not sure that Squarespace support is that helpful. They do have a lot of online documentation. So if you Google Squarespace having trouble with X, then 10 articles will pop up. So if you're good at troubleshooting things on your own, that might work. Shopify. I have not used Shopify's support, but I've seen articles and reviews that said it's very good. They have multiple ways to reach out to them. They have chat support, which is actually really unusual. I haven't seen that on the other platforms. And again, I'm trusting the reviews for this one. They actually answer your questions. So that's awesome for Shopify, because that's so rare, actually. And then Wix. I have used Wix support, did not have a good experience. No one responded. That being said, it was on the free plan. There are lots of different levels of the plan, and they are very upfront about it. For premium support, that's one of the higher level plans. So I think they're trusting that the free version will get you in the door and you'll like it, and then you'll want help, or you'll want to be able to do some of the more extensive things. Maybe you'll want to add e-commerce. Maybe you'll just want your website to not be super slow. And that's how they get you to start paying for the higher level prices. So they do have support, but you're only going to get it if you're willing to pay for it. All right. I see a question. Should one be worried about cyber threats? And if so, are all of these providers about equal and offering protection and security? So that is a good question. And I mean, yes, you should always make sure that you're keeping your website secure. I would say the more traffic your website gets, the more you need to worry about it. But if you have an e-commerce store and you're saving people's credit card information, or their personal home address, you especially need to have a secure website. And most of these will include things like SSL with their basic package. If it's an e-commerce site, then they automatically have things set up to protect people's privacy. Yeah, so Squarespace, Shopify, and Wix, they'll do all of that for you. With WordPress, you're probably going to want to take some of those precautions on your own. So it depends what you install, really. If you install WooCommerce, there are things that come with that. There are things you can do on your own, like SSL. You would have to set it up separately because it's not a platform that's all in one. It's all different things for you to install. Trying to think what else. You can customize your login screen so people have a harder time hacking into your site. I feel like that could be a whole separate presentation. So yes, always worry about security.
Yeah, and then just going off of that, Jen, because that's really obviously a huge touch point, especially for small businesses who are most affected by cyber threats in the United States. We actually have a webinar this Friday at noon called Cybersecurity for Small Business. So anyone who's interested, especially if after going and attending this webinar, you're thinking, I want to get a website up, but you want to make sure you're cyber safe, I encourage you to attend that session and figure out more about the different software you might need to purchase, because to Jen's point, some of them have SSL already built into the web platforms. For some of you, especially anyone using e-commerce, SSL might not do everything you need it to do in terms of cybersecurity. For anyone that's going really gung-ho and going international or anything like that, for example, being careful with GDPR and client information, all of those things come into play. So it's a great question, but like Jen said, you can have an entire workshop on it, and we do on Friday.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so yes, attend that session. Okay, so that was a lot of information to parse. So I made a table to make it easier for you guys to glance over. This is my super scientific rating system with the stars. You can see the little legend down there. And again, you might disagree, and that is okay. This is all Jen's opinion based on her experience with these sites. So this is star ratings, and then down here is the cost for these things. You might be thinking $12 to $40 a month is a huge range, and it is, because there are lots of different levels that they give you. So for Wix, they're going to sell you on that, $14 a month entry, oh, beginner site, it's only $14 a month, or they might even sell you $7 a month. Most likely, check that that's not like a special discount price for the first year, because a lot of times that's what these types of platforms do. And that's also what web hosts do. They give you a really low starting rate that's only good for the first year. And then the other thing is to compare the features. Make sure that you're actually getting a plan that's what you need. So for almost all of these, for Squarespace, Shopify, Wix, and any other website builder, the cheapest plan is going to be the one that has their branding on it. So it's going to have their logo in the bottom. You're not going to have a custom domain, because they want people to see what you're using so that they'll come use it too. So don't get sold on those super low monthly costs, because most likely you're going to need at least the next level up. And then if you're doing e-commerce, you're probably looking at the higher end of the range. So just a thing to note. And then WordPress.org, free, but disclaimer, you are going to have to set up other things that cost money, like hosting. And then I know someone mentioned domains earlier. That's always a separate cost. That's not included in any of these. Typically, that's around $12 a year. So not super expensive, but just budget for it. All right, and then I have a freebie follow-up. After you have built your website and you realize, oh, I have this blank canvas and I have no idea what to put on it. If you're interested, this is a worksheet that we have that kind of guides you through different questions on each page that you might want to answer. Like on the homepage, here are the questions my target audience will be asking. And then as you answer them, that will help you write the content. So totally optional, freebie. If you guys want to download it, the links are here. And then we have some other links as well. Anyone who's considering the WordPress option, although I feel like I probably scared you all off of it. But if anyone is considering WordPress and they're wondering where to get started with hosting, we recommend SiteGround. Great experience. They never nickel and dime us, with hidden fees. And then we also have a referral link that can save you money if you want to use that. No pressure, but it's here if you need it. Link for those content questions we talked about, and link for a free consultation with me if you're interested in following up. Yeah. Any other questions?
That was great. Thank you so much, Jen. I encourage anyone to ask a question in the chat right now. We still have, about 10 or 15 minutes here for open Q&A with Jen, so I more than encourage you to take advantage of that. I do see one person here say, was there a link for the presentation? The presentation will be sent in the follow-up email, so I just put that in the chat as well. We are not sending the recording, we are sending out the PowerPoint, just as a disclaimer to everyone. So we're giving you the PowerPoint with all of those extra links that you can utilize. If you have any other questions besides that, please put them in the Q&A so I can see them. I'm looking through the chat as well, but I don't want anyone's questions to get lost. Just a follow up to this, because Jen has put a lot of great information together for us. And here at the Temple SBDC, we've been really trying to make sure we get into this website design space, because that's something small businesses need so desperately right now. And you can make that call for which website you think is the best fit for you, whether it's Wix or Shopify, etc. We have a ton of WordPress series webinars coming up in May, just so everyone knows. So if after hearing Jen, you think, wow, WordPress actually looks really legitimate, but like she said, it can be a little complex, we are doing 15-person small group sessions, as well as just large webinars like today for WordPress. There's 6 different sessions happening in May. So I encourage you to take a look at our website if that's something you would like to look into after hearing from Jen today. All right, we do have a question here in the Q&A. Do I need a host to create an email address from my domain name?
No, it's a separate service. So while you can usually get an email set up through a web host, you can also set it up with just an email provider. Typically, if you're asking us for who we'd recommend, Google Workspace is very easy, and Google Domains too for registrars, because they typically offer the lowest rate that I've seen, and they also include things like privacy. So GoDaddy will make you pay extra for privacy, and Google Domains includes that. And privacy is in the official registry of all of the domains, it will put your information as the owner of the domain. So, privacy means that instead of seeing your name, they'll see the registrar, and they won't be able to email you.
Great, thanks. I see a question from Hazel too. Just one thing I don't want to forget that I put out there while everyone's still online. I just put the link to a survey in the chat. So since we're funded by the SBA, we are required to do a survey, just so you can let us know how we did, what you liked, what you didn't like, what other webinars you would like to see offered by Temple SBDC. It's only 4 short questions. Like I said, it's in the chat, so I more than encourage you to fill that out and let us know how we did so we can continue to offer these great services. And while I was talking, more and more people are getting, ready to ask questions here, which is great. So I said I'd get to Hazel next. She said, what is the cost of a web designer and what are the pros and cons of using a web designer over just building the website yourself?
I am so glad you asked that. And I probably should have put that in my presentation so I could upsell us a little bit. But so I think it depends on your personality, right? Do you have the time and energy to spend time figuring this out? Some people get excited by building their own website. That's fun for them. Other people, hey, I am really great at running my bakery. I don't want to touch a website. I don't want to do anything with technology. I want someone to just handle it for me. That would be someone who would think about having a web designer come in. I think also the level of customization that you want. So maybe the website is not super important to bringing in new customers for you. Maybe you have a really great referral system, word of mouth, and the website is more of a formality, almost like a business card. You need to check the box, hey, we're a legit business. Use a template, use a WordPress or use a website builder and use a template. But if you want a really strategic website, you want to be able to schedule calls through your site. You want to be able to have content downloads that bring people through the marketing funnel, things like that. Then you probably do want to talk to a website builder about that extra functionality and how they can build some strategy in there. So the website is not just an online brochure, but a tool to get people to come and book with you.
Great. And then she asked maybe what the cost is. And I know you kind of mentioned that in one of your previous webinars, right? Like it kind of runs the gamut, but
yeah, it really, it's hard to just price it out. I can tell you our prices. So we have packages that range from $2,500 to $10,000. And is there e-commerce? How many pages? Is there a massive blog? Some of the redesigns actually cost more than a brand new site because people need to import, 1,000 blog posts. And that's just time consuming. But for a basic website, most small businesses don't really need more than 5 pages. And they think they do, but they don't, right? You need service pages, an about page, and a really good homepage. Contact form. Those are the things that you need. So it could even be 3 pages. So for a 3 to 5 page website with us, $2,500. You can find cheaper web designers. Make sure you look at their portfolio and see other websites they've designed. Consider like vetting people, talking to previous customers. Just make sure you know what you're getting because anytime you're shopping around for the lowest price, just be careful and do your due diligence. But yeah, I don't want you to think like you have to pay what we have, but I also think that our prices are pretty standard when we've researched our competitors.
great, thanks. Yeah, I know that's always a tough question to answer.
Yeah. Some people will charge $5, but do you want that website?
Yeah.
Probably not.
That's always the question, right? So going off of that, I think Becky, if I'm not answering this correctly, feel free to put this back in the Q&A to clarify. But I think these are 2 separate questions. She's asking about a domain name, like recommendations, and then, maybe she's saying,
what to
would
pick
you
for a
recommend
domain name?
putting your country, state, area you serve in your domain name? I think that's what you're asking, Becky. So would you recommend, when you're picking a domain name like sarahmayu.org or whatever it is, would you put the country, state, area you serve in that domain name at all?
I think it depends what's available. What people are going to search, what people are going to assume your domain name is yourbusiness.com. So anytime you vary from that formula, then people are less likely to find it. So if that's taken, then sure, I would say you could add your state. That could be helpful to help, for people to know where you are, but as short as possible and as close to your business name as possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right. So what else do we have here? Is it advantageous cost-wise to hire an in-house person to program and create the website or simply create the website myself? Okay, that seems kind of similar, but I think the idea is, and you can speak to this more, Jen, but what do you mean by cost? Because it's not just money cost, right? It's also the cost of your time, the return on investment. So I don't know if you have any other comments on that.
Yeah, someone asked me a similar question about I think it was Canva templates, but my answer was, do you have more time or do you have more money? Because you're going to pay one way or another. So you can pay using your own time or you can pay someone else to do it for you if you don't want the hassle or you don't have enough time to get around to it.
Yep, definitely. All right, that was all the questions we have here in the Q&A. If anyone still has a question, now is your time to put it in the chat or the Q&A. Otherwise, I did put the link to the survey in the link in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and put that in here one more time in case anyone can't find it. You are more than welcome to sign off for the day. Thank you for joining us on what is maybe your lunch break for this great 50-minute session here. We'll stay on for a couple more minutes in case someone has a lingering Q&A that they get to. But besides that, we are all set for today.
I actually saw something in the chat. Costs should include upkeep. And I think those are two separate things, because the idea that you pay once and then you have people at your beck and call to work on your website forever is not going to happen. But a lot of people, offer web maintenance ongoing, and sometimes people don't understand what that's for. And so it can be really useful, especially if you have a high traffic website or you have specific security needs, just so that someone is going in at least once a month to keep all of your plugins up. Well, I'm talking WordPress, but keep all your plugins updated, make sure that there's no security vulnerabilities, and just to make sure everything's still functioning. WordPress sites can sometimes get hacked and then they'll get redirected to a spam site for like medication or something. And if you're a busy business owner, you're not checking your own website every day. You might not notice for a month. And that's a month you've lost out on customers potentially visiting you because they went to the overseas pharmacy. So I think maintenance can be really good. That being said, if you have a tiny website that doesn't do a lot of traffic, you might go years before you ever have a problem or you get hacked. So it just depends on your comfort level with knowing your website might come down or knowing that it might get outdated.
Yeah, and someone else just put a question in the chat that I think is really closely related, which is if you had someone design your website, does that person have full access to change things or no? And I mean, if you hire them to update it monthly, they would obviously still have access. But if you looked at it the other way, from a security standpoint, maybe they're asking, like, after you have a web designer and maybe you're done with them, you close that chapter, what happens next? Do they still have access to your site?
Yeah. And so that depends which platform you're on. But, and for most of them, you can add different users. So maybe there's a user for you and there's a user for them. And when they're done, you would have to take over and turn their user off. And that's how it works for WordPress too. There's different users for people. For some website builders, there might just be a single login that they've shared with you. In that case, you just change the password. So as long as they've given you the right permissions and you're an administrator, you should be able to have total control and decide who else can access it.
Yep. All right, great. Someone said, what web platform would you suggest a small business go with?
Oh, I can't do this. I can't do blanket recommendations. Are you going to be building it yourself? And then probably, and is it e-commerce? If it's e-commerce, I'd probably say Shopify. If it's not, then I would probably say Squarespace for a consultant. Squarespace, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's personal preference. So you still should probably do some research.
And if you had any follow-up questions on that, you're more than welcome to reach out to an SBDC advisor if you don't already have one, and we can walk you through that process as well. All right, we have two more questions here in the Q&A. Someone said, how do you register a domain /host with Google?
Okay, different things. So
yeah.
hosting is where the website files live. Domain is the, yourwebsite.com. It's the URL that points to your website. So so search Google domains, and then that will come up, and then it will let you search for your domain name, and you just have to, put in your payment information, and now you've got a Google Domains account, and you've got your domain in there, and you can do whatever you want with it.
Great. And then lastly, do you offer branding services at BrandSwan, like logo creation, for example?
We do. And that's actually our favorite thing to do is take your brand from, I'm a beginning business. I know who my target audience is, but I haven't thought it much further out. And then we will talk colors and fonts and differentiating from your competitors. And then we'll build that into a logo. We'll build that into a website. And we can even go into some marketing and messaging too. So yes.
Great. All right, that was it for all the questions. So, while I'm talking right now, that's your last opportunity, everyone. Otherwise, we're going to close it out for, the afternoon. But thank you so much, Jen, for all of that really great information. I'm sure that was extremely helpful to our small businesses, especially the ones just right at that beginning stage, right? So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll be in touch for the rest of the website planning series that's taking place.
Thanks, everyone.